Hello guys, CCTE Photo 1-2. This is going to be how we're going to do our compositing. So today I'm going to be showing you how to use the quick selection tool and then how to cut out and then refine our mask and add adjustment layers to our subject layer. So we should get something like this where we have a subject layer, a background layer, and then we're adding different elements to the photograph. So to start this off, you should have a subject photo and a background photo. So first thing I'm going to do is open up both these photos into Photoshop. So I should have two photos, my subject and my background photo. So what we want to do is move the background layer onto the subject photo. So I'm just going to click on the move tool here in the upper left corner. I'm going to select our background photo. I'm going to click and hold the click and then let go off of so it snaps off. I'm going to click inside the photo and then drag it over onto my subject photo. So it should look something like this where you have two different layers. I'm just going to close out my background photo. So then obviously because it was shot at a different size, I need to adjust the size of it. So a friendly tool you can use is Edit, Free Transform. You can also see it's Command T on a Mac or Control T on a PC. You get these little boxes. If you want to keep the ratio the same, hold Shift and then click from a corner and it'll keep it the same. If you don't hold Shift, it'll go kind of freestyle like that. So hold Shift to keep the ratio so it doesn't warp too weird. So then I'm just going to make it bigger than the size of the subject photo. Double click to engage it or hit return. Then what I want to do is I want to copy my subject layer. So I'm going to press Control J or go layer, duplicate layer, hit OK. And then I'm just going to move this layer on top of the background photo here. So whatever's on top will show in front and whatever's underneath will show behind. So we obviously want our subject photo to show in front of our background photo. So next what we want to do is actually select the subject. So I'm going to go over here to the quick selection tool. It's about the fourth one from the top. And you can make it bigger or smaller with the brackets next to the letter P, those brackets. So you can go and start selecting your subject. And so depending on how you shot your photo, it might do a good job, it might not, depending on how different your background is around the edges. It might have a hard time finding those edges. If it does mess up like that, you can press Alt to subtract and take away part of the selection. So I'm just holding down the Alt key and clicking back some of that extra stuff. And if it needs to add it, you can see it's got a little plus. You just keep clicking on and keep adding. So once you have it at a good point, what you want to do is add a layer mask in the bottom right corner. It says add layer mask. And you'll see it cut out. Pretty rough cut of our bird here. So what we want to do now is refine that mask. So I'm going to go up to the top here where it says select and mask. I'm going to click on that and it's going to give me some options. So what I want to do is turn on the edge detection. And so then I'm going to zoom in a little bit just to kind of see my edges. So what we want to do is paint across the edges. And you can see right now it's trying to do its best job to do a better job of cutting out and finding those edges of the subject versus the background. So again, some subjects might do better, some might do worse. It just depends on your subject and the background around it. If you have a pretty clean background, it should do a good job cutting it out. I'm just going to go around my whole subject. Basically, I'm just telling Photoshop what to look for, what's my actual object, and so then it does a better job. You can go further and refine those refine masks. So these four options here, smoothing, basically if you had like a product or something where it had like a smooth edge, right now it's kind of fuzzing out all those little feathers, which isn't good, so I'm going to drop this back off. Feather is basically how much inside you want it to kind of fade off. So you can see it'll fade, right? So I'm not going to do that for this one. Contrast, if it made it too soft of an edge and you want to harden the edge of the selection, you can add contrast. And then the shift edge is probably one I use most common. If you shift it to the left, it'll start cutting in more. And if you shift it out, it'll cut out. So maybe sometimes you want to shift it in a little bit, just depending on if it kind of missed a lot of it, you can kind of bring that edge in. Once you're done, just hit OK. So then we refined our edge, looks a lot better. You can see a lot of these feathers cut out a lot better, so it did a really good job. It did take away a little extra stuff, so you can always use your paintbrush on your layer mask, so make sure that's selected. You're on the bottom right, your layer mask is selected. I'm going to go to my brush, and then whatever I paint with white will show, whatever is black won't show. So I'm just going to set my brush. Depending on the hardness of the edge, you can change the hardness of the brush here. And then I'm just going to paint back some of the stuff it cut off with my refined mask selection. So again, you can always help it out. And again, whatever is white will show. If I paint off too much, I can switch it to black and then paint that back off with black. So it depends on, you know, what it did in the refined mask element. So once you get your selection looking good, what we want to do is add an adjustment layer to our subject layer. And so basically what we can do is right down here, the little half and half, we can go to levels. And what you want to do when you have any adjustment layer, you can attach it to your subject layer. If you hold down Alt or Option and you go between the layers, you get that little half box with the little arrow. If you press Alt in between and click, it'll then attach it just to your subject layer, so it won't affect your whole photo. So then I can basically, with levels, I can adjust my highlights, my midtones, and my shadows. So maybe I want it to kind of match a little bit more the contrast of the background, and then I can adjust that. And again, it's only going to affect just my subject layer because it's attached to it. Again, if I want to do that again, just hold down Option or Alt, and then click in between the two layers, and I'll attach it to it. I could also change the color temperature. There's lots of different options in here. So maybe, you know, I want to make it a little warmer. I could do a little photo filter. Again, I'm going to hold down Alt Option and then click so it attaches. And so then it's just going to affect just my subject layer. So maybe I want to warm it up a little bit, or I could also go into, you know, color balance where I can really start changing the colors or something to make it match more. Maybe you shot it in different color temperatures from outside to inside. You could use the color balance tool as well. So again, there's lots of different options. You can make it more saturated. You can change the colors on something with hue saturation. So I just want to see at least one where you tried it out and attached it to your subject layer. So this is looking pretty good. I did kind of added some fake brush in front of my subject, so you could always add a new blank layer. And I just went to the background photo and I selected one of the greens. So then it looked like it was something like in the foreground. And then I'm going to go click back on my layer. And then I'm just going to use a soft brush with no hardness. And so it's like a little foreground. Couple of tree leaves are in the way of my shot, right? And so then I can start doing things like that where you add different kind of elements. I can always bring the opacity of a layer down if it's too strong. You can show a percentage of that. And that looks pretty good. So it looks like it's kind of shooting through some brush. I also kind of made the background blurred a little bit, so you have that kind of shallowed up the field. So I'm just going to click on my background layer, go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. This isn't required, I'm just kind of showing you extra things you can do. And then I can adjust the radius, so then it looks like it's more kind of shallowed up the field look, where it's kind of blurred out and my subject's in focus. So again, what I'm just looking for, it should have 3 layers here. Your subject, your background, your copied subject layer with your layer mask. So I can see you cut out your subject. And then you got at least one adjustment layer attached to your subject layer where you try to adjust it a little bit. And then make sure you save this out. So you're just going to go to File, Save As. You'll notice the more layers you add, the more bigger file size it'll be. So you just want to go to Format, go to Photoshop. I'm just going to call this like Composite 1. And make sure it says .psd. And then make sure it's Photoshop format with your layers. And make sure you select where you want to save it. And then hit OK. So what it's going to do is it's going to save it out with those layers. So I could close this out. So the benefit of that is now I got my composite PSD, so I can open it back up. I can go back into Photoshop. I can keep clicking on the layer mask. I can keep adding to stuff. I can add adjustment layers, and I can keep working on it. So once I'm finished, when I'm happy, I want to save it as a JPEG, so I can upload it to Flickr. So I'm going to go Layer, Flatten Image. So it's going to flatten all the layers together. and then it'll let me save that out as a JPEG. So I'm going to go File, Save As, switch my format to a JPEG. I'm going to fix that. There we go. So now it's composite1.jpg, and it's saved, and then check your quality. So then you're going to upload your JPEG to your Flickr. So what I want to see again is your PSD with your layers and your JPEG uploaded to Flickr. So you should have 2 different file types for your 3 composites. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, let me know.